Hey everyone, my name is Nate, and welcome back to Project Nerd, where nearly everything is reviewed and discussed. Today I'm here with
Rachel,
and we're going to be reviewing the live-action Dumbo and comparing it to the original animated film. But before we get started, don't forget to follow Creator Source Studios on Instagram and Facebook at Creator Source Studios to hear about all the other projects that we're working on outside of Project Nerd. And let's get into Dumbo. So I've said multiple times in this series of videos that this was going to be the movie that broke me. This was going to be where I finally broke down and said these movies are garbage. And I have to admit, I don't think they're garbage. It didn't break me.
Oh, it
but
didn't.
this is so bizarre because this is not a remake. This is 90% adaptation. Because we'll talk about it later. But once you get past the 40-minute mark, you're no longer covering content that was in the original film.
Mhm.
You're essentially just creating things, and the things that they've created are just beyond strange. It's weird. What are your thoughts? Your opening thoughts on this film?
Well, let's just be honest right out the gate. I only watched the first 30 minutes of this movie because it took because the 30-minute mark is right about where they are sending Dumbo's mother away, which, if I recall, is pretty much the beginning of Dumbo. It's very close to the beginning. They do not take long to get to that point.
Yeah.
In the original film. And in this film, they have taken 30 minutes to get to that point, but it's minus all of the animals that speak and make the movie interesting, and it's adding all of these dumb human characters that I don't care about, minus Danny DeVito, because he is amazing, and I will always praise him.
Before we get in, God bless Danny DeVito for doing this film. He's the only person that got me through this 2-hour slog.
It's Danny DeVito.
It's Danny DeVito. It's all him.
Because he's always just so good.
Yes.
The only part of the beginning of this film that I can actually say that I enjoyed is there is a scene where it's after the man is killed and he's trying to get the other guy to buy the elephant back, Dumbo's mother back, and the guy's like, I'll buy her back for half price, and he's like, you'll buy her back for full price, and then he's like, quarter price, and then Danny DeVito's like, half price it is, and that was the only part. I was like, that's pretty funny.
I honestly, I really enjoyed the first 40 minutes of this film. So, okay, before we get into that, I guess we should go over the basic plot details. So, like I said, the first 40 minutes are basically the same as the original Dumbo, except for the fact that now, instead of following Timothy and Dumbo, we are following these two children, Joe and Millie, and their dad, whose name is Holt, and I always think people are calling him Colt, who lost his arm in the war. And that's pretty much it. Millie likes science, so she's doing experiments with Dumbo, and she figures out that he can fly. So after they send the mother away, they're like, oh, if you fly, you can make enough money for the circus that they'll buy the mom back. That doesn't really happen. So after the 40-minute mark, after we've completed the full original remake of Dumbo, this strange man, played by Michael Keaton, I believe, he shows up, Mr. Vanderveer, and he's like, I want to buy your circus and your elephant, and we're going to move all of you to this bizarre, Coney Island on steroids in New York called Dreamland, and wacky shenanigans ensue. Eventually they figure out that Mrs. Jumbo is also there in a different exhibit, and when Vanderveer figures that out, he's like, oh, that's going to mess with, my prized flying elephant. So he sends the mother to die. He literally tries to kill Mrs. Jumbo. So the third act of this film consists of a rescue operation.
Oh my God.
The climax of this film consists of a rescue operation carried out by circus folk, in which they have to steal an elephant and get it onto a ship back to Africa or somewhere. I think it might actually be India because they mentioned that Dumbo and Mrs. Jumbo are Asian elephants specifically in this film. But anyway, I don't even know. I want to describe the climax in detail just because it shows you how fucking strange this movie is. Their plan consists of Dumbo and this new character, Colette, doing their act. And while the act is going on, the circus folk are going to attempt to hijack the truck that is taking Mrs. Jumbo to die. While that is happening, Holt, during the act, has to climb up the side of the circus tent. This man has one arm, by the way. This is a one-armed man. He's climbing up the side of the circus tent to cut a hole in it so that Dumbo can fly out of it, get to the main control tower for this strange amusement park, turn off the power so that they can get through the rear gate, and then fly all the way to the nearest seaport so that he can join his mother to go back to wherever they live.
What?
Now, of course, it doesn't go to plan. So what happens is Vanderveer catches on to what's going on. So he shows up at the control tower when Dumbo shows up to turn off the power, and he just loses his mind. Like, Dumbo flies away. He turns on the power. Dumbo gets away. And Vanderveer just starts throwing switches, trying to turn the power back on. And he literally lights the entire amusement park on fire. The entire thing burns to the ground. And this movie ends with Danny DeVito creating a new circus where there are no animals held in captivity.
Oh my god.
The little girl gets to do her science experiments in peace. And Dumbo and his mother go back to the wild. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Do you have any plot-related questions before we continue?
I'm a little sad that I didn't make it through. I think after we finish this, I might go watch the rest of it. If it was just a movie by itself and not based off of the original
Dumbo,
it would honestly probably be pretty good.
It's so
like
bizarre.
By itself, but compared, everyone knows the original story.
Dumbo,
First of all, that movie is not that long. This movie is 2 hours, and I hate that. And
they had to come up with something, and they all really said elephant rescue operation.
Elephant rescue operation. Let's just do it.
Let's do it.
Let's just do it. So, one of my biggest pet peeves about films is that I hate people.
Yeah.
That's what it narrows down to. Now I'm going to expand upon it. So, I hate when they take a film or a TV show or a property that is fine by itself and focuses on characters who are not people. And then they take it and they remake it or they adapt it or whatever. And they spend way too much time just focusing on boring people. And you can't see the poster in my room right now because it's way over there. But I'm a fan of Transformers.
Oh.
And they do that.
Yeah.
With those movies. They do that. I don't care about any of the stupid human characters that they put in those movies. And I don't care about any of the human characters that they put in this movie, except for Danny DeVito. But
praise be his name.
But I cannot bring myself to care. I really, really can't. And maybe it's just because my opinion has been warped because of that. And because of other things that they have done that too. But as soon as they opened this movie, and it was just, I was like, I like kids, but I mean, then the dad came home from the war and he only had one arm, and I was like, oh my god, here we go. You know, this is gonna be some sort of weird story. It took them like 10 minutes to even see a single elephant. So it was all just, they're walking around and they're showing the circus, and it's giving me like Greatest Showman vibes. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if Greatest Showman came out before this or after this.
It's before.
It's
It was
before this?
because Dumbo
Okay.
only came out in 2019.
Right.
This is
So
very recent.
Right. So they have the circus thing. The Greatest Showman came out and made a lot of money. It actually didn't make that much money, but a lot of people liked it, even though not a lot of people saw it in the theaters. I love it. That's one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite musicals. And so they were like, this movie came out not so long ago about a circus and about it was all about, the weird people in the circus. And they focused a lot on that. And this movie is just supposed to be about an elephant who can fly. That's all I want. An elephant that can fly. Which I think is a good segue into another point that we can talk about. I actually think Dumbo looks really cute.
I would agree.
As far as going realistic with it, which I know that they're doing, because obviously it was a real elephant, and they gave him. He kind of reminded me of like a basset hound, where their ears are like so long, and they walk and they trip over them, which is exactly what was happening in the original. So, I mean, I thought that the design was I thought it was realistic, but they still kept, I guess now that the one element that makes him Dumbo, which is the large ears. Because I was a little worried at first. They do a big reveal of what Dumbo looks like, which is way too long in my opinion. And he's like covered in hay, which is cute. And then, which happens in the original too, he's covered in hay and he sort of like comes out and he's got the huge ears. So that was cute. That reminded me of the original. I say this when we did Cinderella. I'm a big talking animal fan. I like it when the animated movies have talking animals. And I didn't like that nobody talked.
No animals talked in this film.
No animals talked in this. I didn't like that at all. Because that's like the main thing about the original. That's like, what if they made Jungle Book and none of the animals talked?
It'd be stupid. It would literally just be Mowgli walking around.
You'd have to replace them. Guess what? You'd have to replace all the characters with people, which is exactly what they did in this. They said, we're not going to make the animals talk, so how do we get our, entertainment out of this? And it's just you add a bunch of unnecessary human characters. I'm not into it. I'm really not.
I mean, the human storyline, it has nothing to do with anything. The only credit I will give it is that once they get to Dreamland, things become just so batshit crazy that it's just fun. It's just so stupid.
You have to be entertained. It's so stupid that you have to be entertained. Dumb. You have no other choice.
Did I think I would enjoy watching a small elephant attempt to destroy the power grid of a small amusement park in New York? No. But did I? Yes. That was the best thing I've ever seen. None of the animals talking. I mean, I don't think it's not a huge problem for me. Mainly because Dumbo doesn't talk in the original.
Right. Which I honestly forgot.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even think that was something that I realized, like, when I was watching it as a kid, that he never
speaks.
Talked.
And Mrs. Jumbo barely talks either. The main characters that talk are Timothy. It's mainly Timothy. It's Timothy and the other elephants. He's a mouse.
He's a mouse. I'm sorry.
His name is literally Timothy Q. Mouse. That's his full name.
Gotcha. I recall that now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge...
In his little ringmaster's uniform. They did still have a mouse in a ringmaster's uniform.
I believe that they don't call him Timothy, but it very much looks like Timothy.
And that is it. So essentially, the biggest character, aside from Dumbo in the original movie, is now just
relegated into nothing.
Is relegated to a mouse in a ringmaster's jacket.
He's not even in the Dreamland stuff. He shows up at the original circus, and he shows up at the end with the new hick circus that they make. So I don't know. This movie really, it toes the line on what I would consider a remake, because there's so much adaptation.
Right, and you do not at all get that impression from what they put out as marketing.
Right.
So I feel like if we had known that, we probably would have.
I would not have included this on the list, because this is not even remotely similar to the original.
No, what could be considered the original movie in this ends quicker than the actual movie. The actual original movie does.
Well, that's because you're losing all of the songs. You're
Because you're
losing
losing
the
all of the
songs,
songs,
and you're losing a couple of extended sequences.
and you've
You're
taken
losing-
all of the characters
yeah,
that speak
and
and
giving them
cut
no
them,
lines.
giving them no line. They don't talk anymore.
Yeah,
So then it's like, what's the story? You have to make up this story about the human characters that you've added for substance.
right. That's another thing I kind of like about this movie is how they reference the original in two ways, really, with characters and then with people, or with
Mm-hmm.
the music rather. So in terms of characters, like when Mrs. Jumbo quote unquote gives birth to Dumbo, they're not going to show that on screen. That would be horrific. But they have the stork from the original like
The
land on
stork
top of the circus
lands.
car, and then he like taps
Yes.
it and then he leaves, which I thought was
Mhm.
cute because
That was.
that's
I
how it
like that
happens in the
actually.
original.
They sing one verse of Baby Mine.
They sing one verse of Baby Mine. There's one use of the melody of Casey Jr.
Mhm.
in the opening, which was honestly my favorite part of the whole movie because I love that song.
I love one of my favorites is Pink Elephants on Parade. Do they do
Mhm.
anything with Pink Elephants on Parade?
There's a whole sequence of it in Dreamland where it's like they're bubbles. Like it's a whole circus act where the pink
Aww.
elephants are bubbles, and it's little Dumbo is like sitting there and he watches it. It's very cute. They don't.
It is
they're-
cute, and they took out all of the alcoholism.
Yes, that was another thing. That was another thing that I liked was Danny DeVito figures out the elephant can fly. He gives Dumbo his own little tent, and one of the clowns comes up and he's like, "Champagne for Dumbo," and he's like, "No booze around the baby." Which is funny because that's how Pink Elephants happens in the original. One of them knocks
Yeah,
a champagne bottle into his bath, which I thought was cute. And I think that's all the music that's in Dumbo. Because I do want to talk about Baby Mine though. Why did you include it at all if you were going to put it in this way? You have taken a song that is near and dear to my heart and you have butchered it beyond recognition. It was terrible. I hated it. I'm so sorry, but it's bad.
Mhm.
Um,
I will say the only thing that I appreciated about that scene is that he comes over, Dumbo goes over to the car where she's being kept,
mhm.
and when she reaches her trunk out of the side and like caresses him
Mhm.
while he's standing there, that's like a shot for shot
remake of the original. Which
like
I can
even the movement of it is even the same. Like that is, and I did appreciate that. I was like, oh, this is actually like a real, like they literally took this scene out of the original movie and reanimated it. So
and normally I wouldn't be in favor of that. However, Baby Mine is just it's such an iconic sequence and it's so
it lasted for 30 seconds.
Yeah, they don't even sing the entire song.
They didn't even do the little
Like
that's
where
the
she
cutest
rocks him
part
with
is
the
where she
trunk.
rocks him.
Yeah.
That's the cutest part, and that's the part that makes it so sad. So
Yeah.
maybe they were trying to lessen the sad. I mean, because the original is sad. It's big. It's
the
real
original
sad.
is insanely sad.
It's insanely sad. I think I cried.
For a
But,
63-minute film about a small elephant that can fly, this movie is thoroughly depressing.
It's quite depressing. It really is.
The rest of the stuff I want to talk about is just like the design of Dreamland kind of and how it kind of feels like it's trying to be a weird meta commentary on Disney, if that makes sense.
Is it very Disney?
Yeah, there's okay. So
yeah, describe it to me.
So listen, when they ride in, they're in a parade, which is I mean that's like standard fare for any amusement park, so that's not a huge deal. But they're riding in and on the left is this big metal rocket and I was like, "Oh, that's neat. That kind of looks like retro Disney type deal." And it's got like a roller coaster around it. It's kind of cool. It reminds me of like the aesthetic of the Tomorrowland movie, if you remember that. But the sign on it literally says Rocket to the Moon, which was an opening day attraction at Disneyland. It was a movie. Like you sat down in the Circle Theater and you looked at the ground and there was like an animated movie of like you taking off and going to the moon. There's that. There's the other building across the way is called Wonders of Science, which very much looks like opening day Tomorrowland, Disneyland. Yeah, and there are other things. There's an exhibit in there on Marie Curie, which they show during one part, But that doesn't really have anything to do with anything. Although it does show how it's kind of like a science museum.
Everything you're describing to me is giving me big, like, Captain America
It is.
First Avenger, but like before they go to war. Like
Yeah.
they go to that expo where
No, it looks like the expo. It really does.
Tony Stark is. It's like if they had the expo at Coney Island. Like
Yeah.
that's what you're describing to me essentially.
That's literally what it is. Like it reminds you of Disneyland, kind of. Like if Disneyland was built in like the steampunk style, like that's the way it would look. I'm inclined to think that this is supposed to be some kind of weird meta commentary
On Disney.
Yeah, but
Land about an elephant burning it to the ground.
I mean, I guess the third act of this film is just so bizarre and strange that if there's any kind of like thematic tissue that I'm supposed to be grasping about this like commentary on Disney,
I'm too distracted by the fact that an elephant has single-handedly burned down
the circus and turned off the power. Oh god. But yeah, I mean
oh my god.
That's basically it. Like if I had to describe this movie, I'd just say it's weird. This is a strange film. I don't even think we can like pick which one's our favorite because they're so drastically different.
Right, because they're really not the same. I'm just going to say that I like the original and I don't like this. I don't like the 30 minutes that I saw. But
I mean,
I might like the last
third. You might really enjoy.
You know, the last third I might really enjoy. I mean, I don't even think we can pick because it's just, they're really, unless you want to pick like between the original and the first 40 minutes of this.
Yeah.
Like, in which case I'm still going to say the original.
Right. I mean,
because it's timeless and a classic, and this is not good.
Yeah, I mean, between the two of those, I would obviously pick the original. But like, I just love the third act of this movie. It's so weird. I
just love how stupid it is.
It's so great. Honestly, like the only way this could have been any more intense was there's a running gag that I've seen in the Star Wars community about like there's a scene from Rise of Skywalker where when they defeat the Sith fleet, there's this very triumphant version of the Force theme that's playing as you see the Admiral get blown out of a window. And I really thought like the only way that this could get more bizarre was if like the control tower exploded and you saw Vanderveer get like blown out a window. Like, that's the only way this could have gotten more intense. God. So, I mean, I guess the only question we can really answer is, does this movie deserve to exist? And I'm going to say yes. Purely for my enjoyment.
Purely for your enjoyment.
If they had to spend if they had to spend X amount of millions of dollars to make the first 2/3 of this movie just so we could get to the end, that was like wonderful expenditure.
Why not?
That was great. I mean, that's really all there is to say about it. That's all there is to say about Dumbo. Do you have any final thoughts before we close her out here?
So we just praised Danny DeVito again.
Oh yes,
for his
praise be his name.
Flawless performance.
It was wonderful.
It was wonderful. I love seeing Danny DeVito in anything. So many things happened in this film. Makes me miss
through 30 minutes of it.
I only got through 30 minutes of it. I miss when the weirdest thing about Dumbo was getting drunk and hallucinating
pink
elephants.
Not destroying a circus.
Not destroying an entire facility.
we gotta end this before I talk about the circus again. I can't do it. We gotta end it. That's gonna be all for today, everybody. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you thought about this act of elephant arson destroying this man's livelihood. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media, and we'll see you in the next one.